Hello and welcome to episode 93, if I'm correct, of Ruse Radio. We are back at it again with a very special guest. Special guest, please introduce yourself, sir.
What's good, guys? I am Nikmoody. I'm a rapper from Long Island, New York. Happy to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, man. And I stumbled upon you on TikTok, and I don't know if you're big into TikTok or where you really post the most, but that's where I see your content the most. And I got to say, you're one of the few people who really blow me away with your lyricism. Because there's a lot of people on there who they're artists, but I feel like artistry has become this thing. It's gotten a little bit watered down. And you're one of those people who I can just tell you would never water yourself down. You're an artist. And I just want to say, I really respect that about you. It's one of the things I look for in the world is more real artistry.
I appreciate that, man, for real. I would hope not. You know what I'm saying? The reason I got into this game and stuff like that is because of the writing of it and the art of it. That's what I enjoy. So to water it down seems silly. TikTok overall is not my platform. It's funny that we linked via there because same here, man. Like your stuff grabbed my attention immediately with your cadences and you reminded me a lot of Atmosphere. Atmosphere is one of my favorite fucking rappers ever. So, for me, I've always focused on Instagram heavily, just collecting. Most of my followers are on Instagram. And I just been posting more on TikTok, just to be ever present across all the platforms or whatever. But mostly Instagram and Twitter for me, overall. But again, it's hard to translate, you know what I mean? I think we do different things than what's modern. So
I agree with you.
Trying to find a way to communicate that with people is hard, but we're here.
Yeah, because I feel like what you have to do nowadays, and it's sad that this has become so accepted, but it's you're kind of forced to contentify your music. When you're making a song.
Contentify, you said. I like that.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I don't write that way at all. When I'm writing a song, it's a pure artistic exercise. And then, I'll talk to people and I'll realize, oh, you write songs for social media. You write songs you're thinking oh, this is a TikTok soundbite. I'm never thinking that. Not even close.
Yeah.
I just get those soundbites through the music. And so it's really interesting that that's the landscape. And I feel like it infects people in a way, it kind of takes away from that artist in them.
100%. I mean, you're seeing it in real time, these big songs that are going number one, people know the soundbite. And then when the soundbite is done, they don't know the song. So it's these guys are going to these festivals big T-shirt Billie Eilish, and then nobody knows nothing after that, because they don't even, and it's not good. But also, I don't know, how do you fight that? How do you navigate that without trying to play into it a little bit? You know what I'm saying? So I think that what you're saying is the way to do it, though. You just keep making music from a pure place, and then you pick those pieces that you think will work instead of, which is hard to do though, because once you do have a little success with one little piece, it might affect how you work on the next one. So I guess it's a give and take. It's a balance, just like anything else.
Yeah, I like to think don't forget what got you here. You know, because I'll see the other thing about that, and it's sad this is music, but it's really all social media. It's somebody will post a video, and that video will pop off, and they're oh, I need to replicate that, kind of like what you said. I need to do that again. And it's no, when you did that, you were being creative. You were coming up with something. And now you're trying to do that same thing all over again. And it's right when you do that, you've kind of lost a little bit of the magic.
Right. And, it's like a microcosm for what goes on in artists who are signed career. Because they'll you know what I'm saying? They'll have success with a song on a record label or whatever, and then the record label's trying to get them to do the same thing again so they could all make money. And now we're doing that on not we, but up and coming artists are doing that on the TikTok level, where one video gets a bunch of views and they just try to keep feeding that one thing. And yeah, I think it's definitely affecting creativity. It's definitely affecting like originality. I think it's definitely, starting to show up in these live shows. Like you're seeing like bigger artists who are quote unquote, on right now, canceling a bunch of shows. And like, how does that work? Like, why is that happening? So I don't.
Yeah. What's your theory on that? Like, why do you think that is happening?
Because there's not enough actual fan. It's a bit of everybody. Like everybody's at fault here. It's just we're the era of, immediacy. So you got people who are just putting out a ton of content and it goes, I guess, somewhat viral. People love it, but they're not really fans. They're not diving into who that person is. There's too much music. There's so much music. So the people who are just doing it off the one song are not building a fan base that actually cares and wants to pay money to get out of their house and go see you.
Right. They don't even know the full song. They just know the soundbite.
And of course, there are plenty of artists that are doing it and doing it right and building the fan base and doing the whole thing. It's just not at the biggest of levels for the most part. I mean, like the biggest guy you'll see is probably Russ, who's doing it that way, and he's been doing it for years that way. But I don't know. I don't know if is he doing arenas really? I know he opened for somebody recently where he was doing some pretty big arenas. But I mean, he's doing these shows overseas in Sudan and like India and stuff like that. And that's different because he's been feeding people over and over again, song a week for forever. And now he has this cultivated fan base that actually cares about who he is, cares about what he's doing, as opposed to the, viral 30-second trend and nobody knows the rest of your songs. I don't know.
Yeah. And he's the kind of guy where he inspires me just because he seems to have found comfort in that process.
Yeah.
Like he seems to have really made it work and he also makes an effort to give that advice away. Yeah. He'll tell you straight up, like, you can make a song a week, but if every song has to be different, you have to push these songs out. Like, he'll tell you his process and how he got there. He's not secretive about it at all.
No, he really isn't.
And we need more people like that, if you ask me. Like, there's no, it's kind of like comedy where you'll have people who don't want other people to succeed. They get mad when other people get laughs.
Yeah,
the same thing in rap, where you'll see people get mad when other people are popping off. And it's like, no, you should learn from that guy. That guy's got wisdom he could give you. Like, there's a reason he's successful.
Right, and then you have the Mac Millers of the world who everybody who's ever opened for him is now like, as famous as you could possibly be. So, and
Mac Miller, he's one of those people who I think manages to break through that mold and like give that authentic raw thing where it translates throughout time. Like, I think if you're a real artist, if you're a real musician, you don't think in these terms. You don't think in these terms of the moment. You're thinking in terms of forever.
100%. Or just like, just creating from a pure place. Like, I feel like everything that he made specifically was like very current to where he was in that situation. And, the universal's in the specific. So if you could be very specific about one little thing, it could have legs.
I've never heard that before. I like that a lot. The universals in the specific.
I think the actual quote is the universals in the particular. I said specific, but whatever. Same difference. Like, yeah. Like if you're very, very specific about one thing, there's something that somebody can take from it that they can relate to it. Because you ever like listen to a song and it's like, song is not at all about your situation, but there's like one line that you really, you really connect to, and then you start imagining what it would be like if all these other lines were, you know what I mean? Like you create your own story within the song. So it's pretty cool how that can happen. And like you said, like it only comes from people being real musicians.
Yes. So what you just said, my songwriting process has always been like, when I write something, I don't want to tell you exactly what I mean, because there's some type of magic within the beauty of that interpretation, of that simplicity, where if I keep my hands off just enough, then that allows you to be able to paint whatever picture you want to paint on top of it. And this is another thing I think a lot of artists don't really understand is that if you were able to do that, if you can walk that line, you can do amazing things. And like that, to me, that's what hip hop was. Like when I look back at the pure lyricism of a lot of earlier rappers, that's what I'm seeing is this thought-provoking thing that they're managing to do. Even when you just have like a great punchline, what that does is it ignites this light within the listener. They're like, I get it.
Yeah.
And you do that a lot. You're a punch guy. You got a lot of punchlines, man. And that type of thing, I think it comes through. Like it's the creativity, that raw creativity just living within you, and it lives through the music. And I should ask you, what's your songwriting process like?
I guess it really depends on what it is. You know what I mean? Like I'm an ebb and flow kind of guy. Like I go through periods where like I haven't been writing much, and I try to do whatever I can to get myself out of it. But mainly it's just I try to live a lot because it's where I get, you know, all those punchlines come from. Like sometimes I'll sit down and I'll write a song front to back, but most of the time I'll have a couple ideas or a couple of lines that I write down on my phone or that happen in real life in current time that when I do go to visit that one beat, it'll just come to me that, I remember I said that one thing. Let me work that in and work around it a little bit. But it really depends on like the song. Like there are these, you know, a fun song, I have no problem freestyling the song. Like that's cool. But like, you know, what happens when you get that one beat that gives you that one emotion, and you're like, no, I need to give this a little bit of respect. Let me sit on this. Let me listen to this on the way to work and the way home from work, and start to develop like an idea. And I think
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think you have to be that way. Like I don't think that you should have one way to write a song. Like it just has to be where you're at, and I think it has to adapt to the music. And then I just try to just go with the flow of the most of it and try to stay writing all the time. Like when I'm writing my best stuff, I'm always writing, and it doesn't even have to be rap shit. Like because I come from like the English literature world. I studied that in school, so like when I'm writing, period, my raps are better. So
yeah. Well, so you said two things there that I really resonate with. The first one is that you need to live more, because I mean that's something I observed when I was I read a book about just writing in general, writing literature.
Yeah.
And that was something that's like one of the most profound pieces of advice I saw is like if you want to be an author, you don't even try to just write something. Like make sure you have enough life experience before you even try to write it, because that life experience is what's going to feed your writing. And
100%.
You know, it's a book about literature, but that applies to music 100%.
No,
like you can't write,
especially our form of it. Like I think like as rappers, like it's like almost like backwards, where it's like you know. It's not, obviously melodies are involved with the cadences and stuff like that, but it's more about what you're saying. Whereas like a song is more about how you say it. You know, the talent lies in like, you know, your voice and how you could use tones and hit notes or whatever. Whereas rap is like, it's like we're saying, like it's your punches. It's the way you approach it, your style. It's your accent. It's all these different.
Your essence. It's your essence.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And it's the way you say it and the words you're saying. So, you know, I think it connects to literature more than music overall, because more than like, you know, any other genre, because it is literature. It was, you know, poetry on beat at its core.
Yeah. And, you know, my approach is that, I mean, I started writing poetry, I think, before I even either it was coinciding one another or it's the same. But I mean, I'll still write poetry. I think when I write a cappella raps, those are poems. They just happen to also be raps, right. You know? And there's something about it's the same thing as like when you write a punchline and you're able to get somebody to think, like I said. I mean, it's that beautiful thing in poetry, and like the best poets do it so well. I mean, where like Edgar Allan Poe, you could pull up a bunch of his poems and you could read them to 10 different people. They're all going to get 10 different interpretations. And it's because he has such a way with words. And that's because of the depth of his soul. Like, he's able to think that deeply. And that's what pulls it out.
100%.
And I mean, that's a beautiful thing. And the other thing you said that really got me is that you just need to write. I just read something the other day where it kind of connected the dots in this interesting way for me. It connected this idea of ideas to evolution. And they said, like, 95% of species die, and the 5% of species make it through. And that's how your ideas work. You know, you have all these ideas and you put them all down, and 95% of them aren't going to be the ones that live on.
Right.
That 5% is where the magic is. And if you're not putting those ideas down, then you're never going to get that 5%.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and it's and I always urge people to, like, you know, because you see so many people who are like nervous to start, like they haven't even started yet, and it's like, oh my God, you have no idea. Like you need to put in 10,000 hours, and you're worried about the first song. No, like write 10 trash songs right now, and I guarantee you one of them will be all right.
Bro, I that's my biggest advice to people is to also, like, not put it out. Like, people, like, start and they put out their first thing that they've ever made, and I'm like, why, dude? You don't have no idea who you even are yet. Like you have to figure that out over time. And like you said, like, 95% of the things are not going to work. And like, I've made that mistake too. Like, when I first started, I just started putting things out, and I was like, terrible. Like, I had no idea what I was doing at all. And over time, you learn, and you start doing shows, and you start figuring out where you kind of belong. And it's not going to happen if you don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's you just have to put yourself out there. I think people just have that fear. They overthink it before they start, but once they get over the hump, it becomes easier.
Yeah, and I think everyone experiences that in different ways too. Like, I've always been really comfortable in my art. I moved to Chicago about a year and a half ago. I just did my first open mic yesterday.
Okay.
And it's just like, it's crazy to me because it went as well as it possibly could have went. And I just feel like I'm bashing my head against the wall. Like, oh my God, you idiot. Like, I know I should be putting myself out there. But instead I'm sitting here in the lab just fucking cooking up chemicals all day. Not giving them to anybody, you know? And so, and I think that live experience it feeds into the art in a way that you could never replicate by yourself. You have to put yourself out there.
I mean,
you have to.
It's music. It was meant to be performed, right? Like, at the end of the day, like, you're giving your energy, and that's the thing about performing too, because you're taking the energy back. Like, the crowd will give you, especially hip hop. Hip hop is so interactive. You know, you can't, like, I've done shows in, like, you know, restaurants where people are eating a salad. I'm like, this is not a fucking venue for rap music. This is, you know what I mean? Like, this guy wants to hear somebody play acoustic guitar in the background, and that's what this is supposed to be. You know, it's not that kind of art form. Like, people need to be engaged, you need to be listening. So yeah, I think it's important because it'll change the way that you approach it as well. You know what I mean? And you know, unfortunately we live in an age, especially I'm from New York, so like the drill stuff is really heavy over here. And you know, you'll be at these showcases and these shows of people just freaking playing that damn track and barely rapping along to it.
That's everywhere. It's not just the drill. I mean, I think I think a lot of people have fooled themselves into thinking that, like, oh, they're not going to get my mix right. They're not going to get my song right. So I need to do this.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that, like, the people who came to see you, they don't even feel like they're seeing you now. They feel like they're listening to an MP3 and you're doing karaoke.
Right. And, like, you know, you're here to display your talent. Where's the talent? You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to use your, like, especially with rapping, like, we don't have an instrument. We're not singing. We're not using our voice. So, like, what do you got to give these people something to remember you by that they want to listen to you? Like, that's what we're doing, right? Like, so, like, it's never really made sense to me overall. If the audio is bad, cut it off, do an acapella. You're better off. That's what you're trying to do here at the show. So I don't know.
Yeah. And maybe we're just old. Maybe we just think like old people, you know? The thing just popped off behind you. You're still recording, right? I don't know if it matters or not.
No, I think it should be still going.
All right. Just being safe here for the folks watching Ruse Radio. All right, beautiful. There we are.
Oh, yeah, Papa. Where are we?
Yeah. Oh, look at that. I'm glad I caught it in time, right? All right, well, yeah, if you just hit record, it just happened, like literally 5 seconds ago.
No.
So if you just hit record.
It's still going.
Oh, it's still going? Are you sure? That file's not, the WAV file's not moving anymore.
It looks like it isn't on camera, but it is.
All right. Silly goose ruse. Anyway, yes. Yeah, man. I think that, like, that's such a shame because, I think it's just a sign of the times. I think people, like, you could never do that in the 90s. You could never even try to do that. If you went out there and you played they would laugh you off the stage. They'd be like, what are you doing? And I think another part of it, too, is even that artists maybe they're not so involved with the recording process, and so they don't ask for, you know, a file without for me, I mix and master all my own stuff. So if I'm going to do that, you know, I got a song where I'm singing on the hook. All right, well, we got to keep all the dubs on the hook at least, so we can still get those harmonies in there. Then it's about leveling all that.
You know, that's different. Like playing a hook or whatever. Like they're not even we're not even rapping verses. Some people, it's like you know,
the other thing is like that's what a hype guy is for. If you think if you think you can't rap all the words, bring a hype guy up there. Get him to rap some of the the words. Get him to memorize the song. Just do like the last lines. You know, that's what you see famous rappers do. Right. They'll go out there and they, you know, if you're going to run out of breath and that's what you're worried about, you can't properly translate the track. Find a way to make that energy come through, but don't have this crutch because that crutch is going to kill you over time.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Because they lose it. They lose like whatever. I mean, I think of music as a very spiritual thing. And so when I see that happen, it's almost like I'm looking at somebody who like misunderstood what music really was.
You didn't understand the assignment.
And I'm just watching them like, oh man. And you'll get a superficial level of response. You'll get some people who will be like, oh, that's hard though. And they'll get into it and they'll support you. But if you want that real, raw thing, you have to give them that. If you want people to really be affected by your art, you have to believe in it. And you have to go out there and sell it. You know, I think performance is another thing where it's like, if you're smart enough at a younger age to get into the right artists, you kind of learn the right lessons. Like, I think there's the rock bands of the 90s did it really well, where, like, you'll see just raw performers, people who go out there and they're not trying to sell you something. They're giving you a piece of them on that stage. Yeah. And that is what you're seeing. You're not seeing like them do this pre-recorded version of a song. You're seeing them give you something completely raw in that moment. Like, you know, you look at Nirvana and their MTV Unplugged. You can't replicate something like that. You can't take that and put it anywhere else. That's like a one-time performance that is a pure example of like what you're doing when you go on a stage and you give someone something just for that moment. It's not meant to be anywhere else. Right. It's just right there. And, you know, it's I could go on and on for days about the kids these days, man. Because I think you and I are both a little bit, we both have a classic mentality towards hip hop. You know, this kind of mentality is kind of, I think that people are starving for it. I think, like, you know, you'll hear people say
it's definitely that coming back. You know, a lot of the old school guys put out albums for a reason. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. And I don't think it's just nostalgia. Like, I think that there's something happening there where people, they don't want this TikTok music. They don't want this music that's only meant to live for 2 weeks. They want music that touches them in a way and that's trying to get at something. And I think that when you're somebody who thinks in that deeper level, you're thinking long term. You know, like, I often feel like, you know, it's a conceited thing to say, but I'm like, damn, bro, I'm ahead of my time. Like, these guys don't understand.
Right, like,
yeah. Me and Nikmoody, we're gonna, in 10 years they'll get it, but right now they don't get it yet.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's
when you're
continue.
Well, go ahead. No. Well, I was just gonna say, when you're like when you're writing music, do you ever think in that way? Do you ever have like a moment where it comes to you where it's like, oh, you know what, this is the catchy part of the song? Like, do you ever catch yourself thinking in that way where it's like, oh, this is the part that's good for social media. Oh, this is the part that's gonna hook people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's I do a lot of these recorded cyphers too. So I'm like in that live element, and when you're in those elements, you kind of prepare for everything. Like at least I do. Like where I'm, trying to be ready for anything that happens. So you do kind of like, you could tell. Like I know what I could say and what way to get a little rattle out of the crowd. You know what I'm saying? So, and the same goes for social media. And I'm trying to get away from that. Because your mind is often going to take you to places that are just sensationalist and like you just do things that'll get people's attention, but there's nothing behind it. Like I did a lot of that when I was making my movie last year. I was like, oh, this would be so sick if I jumped off a cliff and did this thing and a thing. And it's like, you don't have to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I didn't realize that. I just wanted to make something that'll grab, all the time. And I was willing to do whatever it took to get it done. But at the end of the day, the story of that movie was the most important thing. And that's what people gravitated to. And I think people still gravitate to stories, no matter what art form they are. You just have to find the right way to communicate it, the right sounds, the right visuals, and the right people will come. I was in the studio recently. Somebody told me, feed who wants to eat with you. So, in the same way, like the people that gravitate towards that sound will gravitate towards it, and you got to keep giving them that sound. It's hard because we're artists, we're musicians. We want to like be versatile, and I hear a song by like John Bellion, and I'm like, oh man, I'm not doing enough harmonies, I'm not doing enough build-ups with drops. Like I got to do something like that. And it's like, yeah, you can do that, but you have to find that fan base first, and you're not gonna find that fan base doing 10 different things at the start.
Right? Yeah. Feed who wants to eat with you. How do you cultivate that group of people? Do you think? Like, how do you find those people?
Well, man, I can only speak on my behalf, right? So, like, I was doing this movie last year, right? I put everything I had into it. It was supposed to be it was an alternative rap album that coincides with episodes that go with each song, and the episodes at the end make a short film, right? So I'm like, all right, okay. I put everything I had into this. How am I going to stay active on social media and all this stuff if I'm working so hard on this and I can't release anything because it's a movie? You know what I'm saying? So I started hitting all these cyphers. I started doing all these freestyles. I started doing all these, showcases. I started showing up I've been doing that for years, but like last year I really went to another level with it. And I had a couple of moments where things went kind of viral. I had a couple moments where I got to bigger levels. Shade 45 hit me up. And then, little by little, I started building this online community of real rap fans. You know what I mean? People who wanted to see me just rap. And that's what I became known for. That I became known as the guy from the One Train, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. And now when it became time to put out the movie, I was playing characters and all these other things. And people were like, what the hell is this? This is not why I followed you. You know what I mean? Like I followed you because you rap. So, by accident, that's kind of like became like, that's the formula. You got to put yourself out there, not just online, but, walk, especially as white rappers. You know what I'm saying? You really have to show that this culture means something. Like you can't just, you have to be a part of it. You have to involve yourself. You have to be at the shows. You have to be in the community. You have to be collaborating with other artists. If you love it, it's natural. It just happens. And that's really all I could say towards that. Like, just be involved, whether it's online, whether it's in person. Twitter's a good place to find other rappers and artists who are looking to work. It's not as clout chasing over there, I feel. And I found a lot of people on Twitter that share the same mindset. So for me, that's all I could say is like you build your community by wherever you go. It's up to you.
I think it's like a story that writes itself if it's done correctly.
Right.
In that way, where it's like if you do follow those things, those natural urges, then it kind of just, like you said, it just happens, where it almost happens on accident. And that's the natural way of it. Like, you can't force these things. And I think that if you do it right, then those people are already looking in those places, and your face pops up, like they're already looking at that One Train cipher, and then you come by and boom, now there's that real connection that was made, rather than you trying to force them to hear your song through 10 different videos promoting the same song, following a TikTok strategy.
And like, there's something to be said for that too, because I don't do that enough. Like there's 1,000 different ways to do it. You just got to find what works for you. And like we said, like, I just wanted to be active. Like, I was working on this movie and I was like, I got to do a show. Like, cause that's what gives me life. Like, when I do the show, I remember why I do it. Sometimes I forget, like, I've been busy with a lot of like weddings lately and like all these personal family things. And like, I wasn't doing show. I wasn't out there. I wasn't involved in the music. I didn't feel that feeling. Like, to me, the live music feeling is why I do it. You know what I mean? Whatever,
absolutely.
Whatever the reason is for why you do it, you have to do it all the time. Otherwise you'll forget, you'll get caught up in the, the natural sway of life, and you'll get thrown to the side by some nonsense that doesn't even matter. So yeah, like we've been saying this whole time, like, you just put yourself out there. You got to keep going. You got to keep making music, and these things kind of fall in line as they're supposed to. And that's kind of how I found my lane. And now I'm like I'm learning all these ways. I learned what didn't work, and now I'm gonna feed who wants to eat with me. And that's what I've been working on the last couple projects. That's why, we're gonna do that song, and then, you know what I mean? Flow shit is back.
That song, I'm glad that you're the guy who's gonna be on it, because again, like, you're one of those people who I think really gets that song. Like, that song, Flow Shit is back.
Yeah.
Real rhyme, and I'm trying to remember the words.
Real rhyme is up. What?
What? But it's like, I think people feel that flow. They feel that energy. And like, if you're just enveloped in that process, if you get caught up in it, then that stuff comes right through. It's not so calculated. Like, that song wrote itself. There's a lot of songs I write that write themselves, where it's like, I wonder if you think this way, where when you write a song, like, are you thinking about like the story of the song, or are you thinking about the theme of the song? I know you said you write things and it's always different, but like, for me, I'm always, one thing I've tried to do a lot recently that I didn't used to think this way is I try to really think in terms of like, what is the essence of this song? What's the theme? And that's how the best films are usually written too. If you're writing a movie script, you're not just thinking in terms of the story. You're thinking, what is someone walking away from this movie with?
Right.
Like, what is the general theme? And I think that song, which people will see when it comes out, it's a song about flow, and it's a song about flow shit is back. Flow shit is back. That's it. That's all. That's the tagline. And then you just write everything else from there. And it's almost like what you said at the beginning of the conversation, where if you can take that simple idea and then flesh it out, but it's still that simple idea at its core, then that is a really effective piece of art. So I wonder if you approach things that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, because like I try to do my best to adapt to where I try to write from where I'm at in that moment. You know,
try to catch it,
like wherever I'm at, and I think you find what you're trying to say as you go. Sometimes I'll, like, this will happen a lot to me actually. Like, I'll start writing a song, like I'll write the first verse and I'll scratch it. And when I start writing the second verse, okay, now I found what this is about. You know what I mean? Because I just said a bunch of nonsense to get to the point that I'm starting at right now. Here we are. You know what I mean? Because you gotta, especially when it depends on how often you're writing. Like, when you're in that flow state and you're constantly writing, you're you're already going, you know what I mean? But sometimes, like right now, for instance, like I got to get back into that space. I got to start even reading more, because when I start reading, I start thinking more thematically, I would say. So yeah, it has to just come from where I'm at right now. Like for this next project I've been working on, I've been really trying to focus on like, who am I? Like raw, down to the core, and giving people that, telling my story. And not to say I wasn't doing that this whole time, but I feel like I wasn't very like as specific as I could be. Do you know what I'm saying? Like specific to me. So
yeah,
it's
what brought you to that? What brought you to that idea for a project?
all that, like as we've been saying, like I made a lot of mistakes. You know what I mean? I feel like people don't look at it that way. The people around me are like, what do you mean? Put the movie out. I want to see it. And it's like, yeah, you're gonna have people that care about it, but we're not talking about. We're trying to take it to the next level, right? I mean, I've been doing this for a minute now, and I want to take it to the next level, and I think everything I've made so much music in different genres and different subgenres that I don't know what to do with sometimes. You know what I mean? Because like I have like a rock song, and and like I said, like feed who wants to eat with you. So if this is working, and I love doing that, because that's like rapping in a cipher is my favorite thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at my music and I'm like, I don't have a raw hip hop album out. How's that possible?
Yeah.
That doesn't work like that. I mean, I had a project I did last year where I did like, it's called the Cypher Tape, where I took like all these cypher verses that I've done well, and I collaborated with like 50 rappers and 15 producers from like all over the world. And we put together like one big cypher through 19 songs. And it was awesome. But like, it's more of a collaborative thing. And then like my first album was like all over the map, because I was trying to figure it out. Like I was doing all these different styles, like not that it was all rap, but it was like, melodic rap. I was doing, more of a sing-songy type stuff. Then one was like rock influenced. And then when you put it all together, it was cool, but it's not a raw rap record. And when I'm thinking about what's on my walls, right behind me on all these things, raw rap records. So I'm like, what am I doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you're having an identity crisis over
exactly.
here.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I feel like that's okay, man. Like that's why I'm saying, like, you gotta figure it out, and you're not gonna figure it out through anything anybody tells you. Like, you can read as much as you want and get more knowledgeable about it, but you got to just fail. You got to fail a ton. And that's what anybody will tell you in anything when you're trying to chase something that seems far-fetched. So, I just got here through putting my all into everything and thinking everything was the greatest idea ever, and then realizing like, hey, maybe it wasn't, but guess what? It took me here. So here we are.
Yeah, that's interesting, because like, I go on TikTok, and there was a point in time where my most popular content was like, it would be singing content. It wouldn't be rap. It would be like if I did song covers. And I realized, and it's not that thing where it's like it went viral and I was like, oh, I should keep doing this. It's just like, I know I'm good at it. There was a video where I did a System of a Down song, and that's where it really popped off. I was doing the song Toxicity. And, I put my all into it. I was just recording one day, and, I didn't think much of it. I'm thinking, oh, maybe this will get some views. It's my most viral video I've ever posted. And it's so funny because on TikTok, it's got like 600,000. Somebody reposted it on some System of a Down meme page on Instagram just recently. The video got 2 million views, like 2.5 million.
Wow.
And so I'm like, and I didn't even care that they stole it. I'm just like, oh my God, 2 million? Jesus Christ. And so I reposted it. I got like 250,000, which is actually great, because it's getting I don't know how you're supposed to gain traction on Instagram. That was what did it for me, was that.
Yeah.
But like, the problem is what you just said, that when I'm thinking about my music and what I'm thinking about getting those people who want to eat with me, I can't keep doing that. I can't keep posting these song covers, because if I do that,
I feel like that's one thing, like, where that's it's so confusing, because it's not a song, it's not your song, you know. So like, are they into it because of the song? Are they into it because of your rendition? How does that translate to you? Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly.
I don't, like, covers are a different thing, I feel, overall. But I mean, it's not a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with that doing what it did. That's amazing.
But the artist in me is like, you know, because for one, I know how these algorithms work. Okay, these people are coming through and they're thinking, oh, this guy's a metal guy, this guy's a rock guy, and so they follow me. And in that algorithm's brain, it's thinking, oh, this guy's a rock guy.
Right.
So they're gonna keep giving that to those people, and that's almost like, you know, I don't want to fool the algorithm into thinking that's what I am. But even outside of that, it's like, you know, like you just said, the artist in me thinks, oh, they're here for me. They're here for what I'm giving them. But is that true? I don't know. It might not be.
It's hard to say, because people have built careers off of doing covers and stuff like that. You know, there's no real answer. I just think that, you know, we keep throwing stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and like, you know, I would, you know, try it out. Do it. Write your own version of that kind of song and see what happens. I don't know. You don't know. If you like doing it, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's
I'm
really
similar to you in the way where I have a lot of history with different kinds of music. Like, I was in a band at one point, and some of my best work was in that band.
Yeah,
it's almost a shame to me that had to come to an end, because, you know, I look at it like music is music is music is music. When you start thinking I'm the rapper, then what you start doing is putting yourself in a box. And
100%.
so I try not to think that way. I try to think, like, when I hear this beat, what comes out of me? And, you know, it's like what you said about catching it in the moment, because, you know, if I'm thinking, oh, this is like my Tyler the Creator type song. Oh, this is my Russ type song.
You can't type beat yourself. No way. Can't do it.
No, because you lose you. And what you are is completely unique. And what you're going to bring to that table is completely unique, whether you know it or not.
100%.
And so, you know, there's a lot of songs where they sound nothing like my other songs. And I think that type of experimentation is really important. But if you want to translate something, that's the hard part. Like, if you want to actually approach it a different way and have a target, that's hard. Because what you're saying is, you know, I've done this for so long, I don't want people to keep thinking I'm not this rap guy.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm this rap guy. I have to show them that. You know, one thing I realized is, too, like, I know what I am. Nobody else does. I have to prove it to them constantly.
Well, that's what I'm saying, too. Like, you know, you got to figure that out yourself, you know, and you have to love doing what it is. And I think sometimes, too, where a lot of times I'll do these songs, like, for instance, this is kind of a perfect example for what we're talking about. That album that I made that was tied to that movie, right? And
yeah.
It was more alternative, right? When I go to do shows, I can't do any of those songs. I can't do them. They're different. They're weird. They don't translate the way that I want to. I'm known for being like in your face, raw emotion rap person. And I can't do the album I'm putting out. So I'm like, what? That should give you all the information that you need for going forward. You know what I'm saying? Like, not that those songs aren't good and I don't love them and they weren't true to me. It's just, who am I? Like, who are you? Like, what are you? What's your skill set? What are you like? Am I a decent singer? Sure. Am I the best singer live? Probably not. You know what I mean? And like, a lot of those rely on those high harmonies and stuff like that. I'm much rather be projecting and using my chest voice to really rile you up. That's what I'm good at. So when I go to do those songs, I can't do them. I'm like, okay, well, shit. I think I need to give these people songs that I love doing live and stuff like that. So,
you know what's interesting about that is it goes back to what we were saying earlier about needing to perform live too. Because if you don't perform live, like, you don't.
It's so important, like, and I can't stress that enough. It's what happens if you blow up and then you got to do the songs in front of 1,000. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing? You got to be ready.
Yeah, and 100%. And you also like if you don't have that experience where you figured out who you were, then you kind of do. You have that identity crisis live on the stage. You're going out there and you're performing that soundtrack album in front of 100,000 people, and you're like, wait a minute, this isn't landing. Like it went viral. People know who I am.
It's so
Why
different.
is it not landing?
It's so different. Like some of the best songs you'll see live are like not streamed on social media, and vice versa. And then there's obviously that one magic one that does both, and here we are. But yeah, man, it's okay to for not being, for you to not, for performing not to be your favorite part of it. Like there are plenty of artists I know who don't love that side of it, but you still have to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't mean like, all right, I'm just not going to do it. I'm like, all right, well, the music suffers.
One thing about it too is like, I would urge people to like think about the things you really remember. Like when somebody makes a real impression on you, where is it usually? It's not usually when you scrolled across their social media. It's usually when there was some type of connection. Either it's live, either it's something where it's like, I think even podcasts, one reason I really love doing these is just because I think it gives people an opportunity to see that different part of an artist where they're able to connect in a different way. And I think if like somebody watched this, they really like the stuff you're saying, they're going to go listen to your music in a completely different light now.
100%.
Now they know, oh, this guy is like me. I resonate with this guy. And then everything you say comes across differently. And I think
agree.
that like when you approach things in that way, you kind of, you naturally cultivate your people. You find them because you're giving yourself out a little more. And if you just stay in the lab all day, you don't do that. You kind of miss that part of it. And you could end up going down these rabbit holes, and you could end up kind of just losing yourself in the process.
Yeah, I can only say that because I've done it. You know what I mean? Like I've been on that side of it. So I'm not speaking on like some sort of like, you should do this, you should do that. So I'm just like, this is what I know. And then it's all about the balance of everything. You know what I mean? And I know people who don't perform who put out freaking 5 albums a year, and I know people who don't put out any music and are at every freaking show in New York every week. So there's a balance between both of those ideas, and I think that balance is going to be where the success lies.
Tell me a little bit more about this movie, because I had no idea that you worked on this. And it's not available anywhere, you're saying? You can't watch the movie? Or is it somewhere people can find it?
So what happened was my plan was that, again, like learning and realizing things, like I tried to plan out this year to the T. And sometimes that's not good. You got to go with the flow of things a little bit more. My plan was to drop a song and an episode, the episode from the movie that correlates with that song every month. And okay. I did that up until July 1st. I had 6 episodes that came out. I dropped 6 songs from the album. And the idea was that it was all going to come together, and we were going to pitch. So the episodes would end, and they have like these kind of cliffhanger effect. It's kind of a Black Mirror type of film, just about that crucial decision of whether or not an artist should continue or.
What was it that really brought the movie in your mind in the first place? Like you said that you had these sensational ideas and you wanted to kind of pull those across. Was that kind of the ideas you wanted to have, like a visual thing, or it sounds kind of like the way you were describing it just a moment ago. It sounds kind of reminds me of when like Kanye drops an album and he drops a whole movie with the album. Like he's trying to do this cinematic thing as well.
I think that way. I studied screenwriting, so like in school. So like I was in, I've been behind the scenes on a lot of short films and stuff like that. I wanted to just do something different. I felt like we were talking about earlier, everything is just like TikTok sounds and all this stuff, and I was like, if I can find a way to grab those people's attention while giving them a serious storyline about, the human experience, I think that'll be a win for me as an artist. So I wanted to do something that was just completely out there. I mean, that's why it was called Or Elsewhere. It was kind of like this choice where you're given it's either to conform or elsewhere. Like you start walking down this path of, just complete iconoclast. And that was the point of the movie. It was like an artist faced with the decision to, either continue on, even though he wasn't having much success, or, support his family in a more productive way. And I think that's something that we all kind of face as artists, is like that moment where you got to either go all in or you got to kind of step back, because, half-assing anything is not going to get anything done. But yeah, the plan was to pitch to the film festivals, and that's what we're doing now, trying to see if we could land a film festival. I started to notice, like, 6 of the episodes are out. Like, if you want to go to my YouTube, the first 6 episodes are all out in chronological order too. You could watch them. But we stopped after episode 6 just because I just started to notice that I think that there's a bit different way we can go about it. And I started to notice everything we've been talking about, of like people, really gravitating towards me as a rapper and not me in character on social media. I think people didn't understand that was, a film. Seriously, I had people like hitting me up like, dude, man, you changed, bro. I thought you were a real one. Like, I thought you had that old school vibe. And I'm like, dude, you realize, like, I put the blue hair and the tatted face and the grills, like, to make fun of that, right? Like, you do realize that, like, that was the whole point, dude. Like, whatever. But that doesn't mean that, like, what we did doesn't have a place. It's just not that place. So I'm starting to focus more on the film festival circuit. And whenever we get, hopefully we get like a South by Southwest or something like that, where we could premiere the film, and I'll put out the album that I made that coincides with it.
Okay. So it's kind of taken on a life of its own in a way, it seems. Like you're kind of leaving it to the side, doing something else in the moment, but you want it, you haven't given up on it. You still want it to have its own.
If you watch it, you're going to realize, oh, wow, this is... spent a lot of money on that. I kind of, as an independent artist, I can't let that one go. I can't. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So there was a lot of complications we had along the way, but ultimately it will come out eventually. I just, I can't say when right now, because, I want to focus on the stuff that I've learned. I want to focus on, the raw hip hop stuff, because that's really what I care about. Not to say that I don't care about this, but like we said, we learn.
How did you go about doing it? Like, did you write the whole script? Were you kind of the creative mastermind behind the whole project, or were there other people involved?
Oh, there was a ton of people involved. I wrote and produced it with a friend of mine, an ex-girlfriend, if you will. So that that definitely. Aided the breakup in the movie too. So it's very close to home, let's say. So it was, I had my videographer I've worked with for years, who shot everything. We had about 10 people, so like 2 directors, 2 photographers, 2 videographers, me, my ex, and then just, a couple people that were on set most of the days to help out.
That's impressive, man. Because, a lot of people I hear, I want to film a movie for my album. I'm thinking they're grabbing their phone, they're just kind of winging it as they go. It sounds like you had a whole project that you were putting together here.
Take a look at the first couple episodes. You'll see. We had 75.
I sure will.
Well, we had 75 people fill out a theater one day as extras, as I played a magician.
Oh my God! Yeah. Wow, that's interesting, man. Okay, and do you have a big interest in film? Like you're really into movies, or was that 100%. Kind of just a creative venture?
No, I don't want to pigeonhole myself to being just like a rapper. That's not. I would like to just be an artist of all sorts. Like I look up to people like Childish Gambino and Lil Dicky and these guys who are across many different platforms creating. I think that's where I would fit best overall. Yeah, definitely not. I would love to do that. I loved directing and putting that together and watching that come to fruition. I thoroughly enjoy it. So definitely going forward, that would be a goal of mine, along with the music, is to to produce films as well.
Wow, that's cool, man. Because I mean, you know, in the same way that I think music is music is music, I think art is art is art. You know, you're almost flexing the same muscle when you go and you get into those things. I think that it's like I think it actually feeds into the music in this really interesting way.
100%.
When you are able to go all the way with an idea like that, and you're able to explore it. You know, you're following this like improv mentality of like you're yes-anding yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I have this great idea. Let's see if we can really do it. And you're not stopping yourself and boxing yourself in as the rap guy. I'm glad you said Childish Gambino, because he's one of those people where, you know, you think of him as a rapper if you only know him as Childish Gambino.
Right.
And then you realize, oh, this guy's got a body of work outside of this that stands on its own.
Like, ultimately, the rap part is probably the smallest portion.
Yeah, which is crazy. You know, I still haven't watched Atlanta, and I've heard so many good things.
It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah. So, okay. And when so you don't have any plans of doing anything like that in the near future, though? You kind of look at that as like something that you did, but now it's time to go all in on the rap.
I'll tell you this. I don't have a budget for that. So
yeah.
You know what I mean? My main goal with that movie is to get a bigger budget. That's really what I wanted. Like, I want that to premiere at a festival, and some guy be like, listen, I'll give you a bunch of money to do something like that. I'll be like, you know what? I have 5 scripts right now that I have ready for when that happens. Right now, no, I want to simplify things. I want to go back to the raw. I want to just show who I am as an artist. But I am very, very much ready for that moment. And you could guarantee any record label that comes to my doorstep, you're getting a lot. You're not just getting an album. Yeah, I'll give you whatever you want, my dude. Like, just give me money.
So, how about this? When you go to these cyphers and you're spitting at these cyphers, how different is that than when you sit down to write a song? Like, how do you look at the difference between those two things?
It depends on what it is. Like, if it's a freestyle cypher, then you kind of just got to, make sure that you were writing a lot before you go there and just go with the flow. But some of these things are filmed ahead of time. So, like, you go with like a solid written, but you could write whatever you want. It's about the performance of it. So it's like, a lot of people get in those moments and they can't project, or they don't, you know what I mean? They don't stand on what they wrote. And I think that just comes with being out there, man. Like, I can remember my first performance like it was yesterday. Like, the difference between then and now is a lot. It's drastic. So when you sit down to write a song, I think sometimes, like you said, it's about the song. It's about the themes. It's about what are you saying that people, why do people care about this song? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And in a cypher, you're feeding off of the crowd. So I think you got to kind of write to your environment and rap to your environment.
Yeah. You got to feel that one out.
Yeah, and you don't.
And if you're not doing that, you end up you kind of just recite what you wrote, and you don't actually feel that room. And in that cypher, a lot of that is that magic. Is like when you say that one line, everybody goes, "Oh,
yeah.
That's you did it. You did it.
You feed off of it. You know what I mean? You start seeing red, and then that's where the good stuff comes."
That's interesting that you write beforehand, because what I would struggle with, and it's kind of like the thing that's always intimidated me away from these things, is I feel like I would have a written, I'd go in, and then that energy in the moment would just, I'd be rabbit myself out of it. I'd be stand there, and the words wouldn't come to me.
Yeah, I mean, bro, it's happened to me before too. It's part of it. You know what I mean? Like, keeping a healthy mindset, and it's really this is something I've been talking about a lot lately. Just because we all go through stuff, man. Like, I personally, like, I've had a difficult year, and a big thing that I've taken away from this year is like keeping that poise, keeping that calmness, and in those moments, the calmness is what is going to win. If you could, when you're packed into that one train and there's hundreds of people like on top of you waiting to see what you're going to say, and you're calm, that's a scary motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? That, and then there's an interview that Kobe has when he's talking about Steph Curry. Kobe was talking about Steph Curry, and he's like, there's a serious calmness about him. He's like, it's deadly, and there's something to be said about that. And I think that only comes with mental preparation, and it only comes with experience, really.
Wow. It reminds me of, I wish I could remember his name because I'm not too big into fighting sports, but it was I think it was one of Conor McGregor's last big fights when he fought against the guy. What's that again?
I'm obsessed with all of that stuff. It's like, I don't even really like the fighting. I like the build up, dude. I love it.
Yeah, that's like most of it, right? It's just again, like if we're obsessed with stories, if that's what people are, then it's the story of the fight more than the fight itself. 100%. But I think it was Conor McGregor, and he was fighting this Russian guy, and I wish I could remember his name.
Khabib.
Yeah, Khabib. That's who it was.
Yeah.
And that build-up was so interesting because you got Conor McGregor, who's this guy who's coming out there, big, showy guy. That's what he's known for. He's bombastic. And then you got Khabib, who is the exact opposite. And he's what you're saying. He's calm. He's collected. And that, I feel like, is the best way you could approach somebody like Conor McGregor, because the fact that you're so calm, the fact that you're so collected is actually the intimidating aspect of it. You're one scary motherfucker.
Well,
it's this guy is on point here.
If you know a lot of like Conor's stuff, Conor would win fights before they started. So leading up into that point, he had, I don't know if you saw what he did to Jose Aldo. He knocked him out in 9 seconds.
Yep, I did see that.
The lead up for that fight was over a span of years where Conor was antagonizing, calling this guy a pussy. When you watch the fight, the fight starts, Conor is loose. He's chilling. And then Jose Aldo's like this, nervous, feeling the pressure of the moment. And that's what the result was the result.
It's so interesting how cerebral that whole thing is.
No,
it's so much bigger than the fight.
100%. I have a sports background. I played college basketball. I grew up playing sports. I wasn't really in music until afterwards. So I'm very, very, into that stuff. That stuff is so important to me because it really is. People, the Babe Ruth quote, baseball is 99% mental. You know what I mean? It is. It really is. Yeah. So, and taking that and translating it to what we do is interesting to me.
There's something about the flow state of it, and I know that when I am in my element, when I'm doing my music, I can find it. And I think, there's almost something that's like a lesson that can be taken out of when you see people in that flow state. It's a human characteristic that I think we could all value from. If you're able to lose yourself in the art form of whatever it is you're doing, then you become this monster in a way, because now you're not bound by what you think it's supposed to be. You just know what you are, and what you are is something incredibly different. There's the reason that somebody like Conor McGregor or Khabib both stick out in their own individual ways. They're so different from one another, but they're also just such powerhouses of character, and they're so unique.
Yeah.
And there's something about that's it's a universal thing I think people understand.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be communicated a lot of times. You see somebody in that flow state, you just know. You know what I mean? And that's there's something special about that.
So is there any other interest that you have that the people might not know about? You're into fighting, you're into movies. What else are you interested in? You said you read. You said you read books. What kind of books do you read?
I guess satirical kind of stuff. I'm a huge comedy person also. I know you mentioned some comedians before, but my feed is hip hop, sports, and comedy. That is my feed. And I think a good joke writer approaches it the same way a good rap writer probably would. So I truly appreciate that side of it as well. Yeah, man, I go to a lot of comedy shows. I've seen a lot of people bomb on stage and stuff like that. And like, I think that's like the hardest thing to do is do stand-up comedy. But you know, a good joke is the same way. It has that punchline, and the setup and the build-up is the same kind of way that you would write a rap line.
Absolutely.
So yeah, man.
I would argue too that like that following that creative thread, like I think the best comedy, it's not trying to be so jokey as it's trying to get a thought across, and it's just doing it in the format of comedy. Right. You know, like there's an idea, a pure idea in the comedian that they want to share, and they just found this format in which they're able to share those ideas, and that's comedy.
100%. 100%. And the best ones you don't even realize. You're just listening to a story, you know what I mean, and laughing along the way.
Absolutely.
So I was at, I took my mom to go see Sebastian Maniscalco like last week. He's like our Italian god, obviously. And yeah, he brought out Jerry Seinfeld, which...
Oh, no shit.
Yeah, and he was, you know, I'm not, like, I like Jerry Seinfeld, but I don't think his stand-up is, like, incredible ever. But he was incredible. Like, he did 20 minutes of, like, some of the best, like, well-written jokes I've ever seen, and it was super inspiring.
Wow. And you didn't know he was going to be there?
No, he kind of brought him out like a rapper was bringing out like Jay-Z. It was crazy. It was like, comedians don't do that. It was so he's like, I got a special guest. It's freaking Jerry Seinfeld.
Wow. You know, that's one thing I'm really into comedy as well. And that's one thing in comedy that's really interesting is like, you know, you see these polished bits. That's what a lot of people understand comedy to be. They understand the final product of the bit. They don't understand that all of those workouts those comedians did in these small rooms like you just saw, like that's where you get this polished bit. And you might go out there and you might completely bomb, but you can't walk away from that and think like, oh, I don't have it. It's like, it's a learning process. What is it about that didn't work? And that's where you find the bit. Yeah. And you know, it's just so interesting because I'm very drawn to comedy. I think that like I personally think comedy would be so much more difficult than music. I would struggle with going on stage and doing comedy. And maybe that's just my personality type. I don't know what it is. I think I could pull it off if I really wanted to. But like when I see people do it and they do it well, or they have a good they have a good personality for it, I really respect it because I think it takes a certain type of courage that even I don't have at the moment, you know, to go on that stage and put yourself out there.
It's different.
It's very different. Yeah.
There's something about the silence of a joke not landing that hits a lot harder than anything else, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard it put this way where it's like, if I'm a musician, I go out there, I don't do so great. People will clap out of pity. You know, they'll be nice. But if you're a comedian, it's like they're just looking at you waiting to laugh. They're like, make me laugh.
It's part of it too, though. I feel like in the comedy community, they like want you to, like, that's part of it. Like you expect to be booed if you suck, which it should be it should be like that in music too, honestly.
Well, you're from New York, and New York's comedy crowds are notoriously harsh. From my understanding, in New York, if you are not like, it's not like other places where you can bomb and get away with it. If you bomb in New York, those guys, they have a certain echelon, whatever the word is. They have a bar for entertainment. All right, these guys get a lot of this stuff. So when you come out there in New York and you bomb, it's like, okay, we could go anywhere else and do anything.
Exactly.
We're choosing to stay here.
You're fucking up my Tuesday, man.
my Tuesday, and believe me, I ain't got the time for this.
No.
I it's so funny because I have this vision of myself as a comedian, and I've always wanted to pursue it, but I've never had the courage to do it. Do you ever think of yourself as like, oh, maybe that's something I could do since you're so interested in it? Or are you so hard set on this, like, this path of music that you've never even really played with the idea?
I would love to try it. Honestly. I think I just did my buddy's best man speech at his wedding. I had a couple jokes that landed. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'll give it a shot. I don't know.
Maybe there's something here.
I don't know.
That's
probably
funny.
Not, but it's worth trying. It'll be fun either way to try.
Yeah. Are there some comedians in particular that you like a lot?
Yeah. Let's see. Huge fan of obviously Bill Burr. Chappelle's tremendous. I really love Gerard Carmichael. I don't know why he doesn't do stand up anymore. I haven't seen him do anything. He was tremendous. Obviously, Sebastian Maniscalco's high on my list. Let's see. Jeselnik is great. I love watching Kill Tony. Tony's great. With the Shane Gillis is awesome. There's that guy. I don't know if you watch Kill Tony, but there's this kid Casey Rocket on there. Have you ever seen him?
Casey Rocket. He's a controversial comedian, if you ask me, because his style is so unconventional.
I love that
it's polarizing. Yeah,
I love it. I think it's ridiculous.
Are you familiar with Andy Kaufman?
Yeah.
People like him remind me of Andy Kaufman. People like him who, they're doing it for the art form. They're not necessarily doing it for the laughs. And there's something about that that's really respectable, because
he does have some good jokes in there every now and then too. Like he'll throw in like a Mitch Hedberg type one-liner in the middle of it. But then I'll hand you the photo of Grimace and you're like, oh God, what is this guy doing? When he did that
and it's almost like
he put the Dutchman's key. That was tremendous stuff. He had it in his mouth the whole time.
It's a creative exercise, for real. Like, you can't come up with that stuff thinking, oh, how do I just give these people 1 minute of comedy? You got to really be thinking outside the box to come up with, I'm going to put a key in my mouth and pull it out, and that's going to be the bit.
The thing is, like, I think, a guy like him, like, he has so much room to get better. Like, he already has that little dust that grabs your attention that a lot of people just can't muster. Some people just don't have it. If he can work out like writing some good jokes amidst this whole thing to extend like a long special, I think he would have something really cool. But he does need to. I will say he's like, it's a minute on Kill Tony. Like, doing something ridiculous like that makes sense. But like going forward, he definitely needs to flesh out some more ideas.
Kill Tony is an interesting show because, like you just said, it's a minute. It's kind of impossible. Like, I look at it like you're kind of setting these guys up for failure, and that's kind of what makes the show work. Yeah. It's like no one can really be great in 1 minute. It's kind of impossible. Yeah. You have a few people who manage to do it, and it's always like mind-blowing when you have somebody come on Kill Tony and they have a solid, amazing minute. There's a few regulars on that show. I'm forgetting his name right now, but he's the black guy who he gets real into. He is basically like a character. He's talking like this. He'd be going all the way. I wish I knew his name off the top of my head, but it's funny because I know guys like that. That's what makes me laugh about him. Is I know that he's tapping into some part of his personality because I've met guys like that, and 100%. That's exactly who they are. He's just being himself. But then there's the other people who it's just such a different format. I think music could even benefit from something like that, where you give people an opportunity to see smaller musicians in a single area. That show works really well. I commend Tony Hinchcliffe for, he's a guy who I used to not like him and I couldn't put my finger on why. And I still can't tell you because I love the guy. I think he's just managed to tap into that asshole part of his personality perfectly. Yeah. It's
hilarious.
Originally it rubbed me the wrong way, and now I realize he's just doing that really well.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
Yeah, he is. And what he does with that show is awesome. I really think that like I said, music could benefit from that because there's a lot of small comedians who they have this opportunity to go on this big stage because of people like him. And there's a lot of people who made their way through that show. There's a lot of people who they started podcasts and now they have an audience because of Kill Tony and because of the audience they cultivated through there. They found the mouths that eat with them through that show. It's 100%. Really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think we had a great podcast here. I think this is a nice little wrap up. Is there anything that you wanted to leave the people with before we go? Is there any like final message you want to send to them?
Nothing. Just keep going, man. Like, I think when we get caught, I mean, to sum up our conversation, like, just stay passionate, man, and stay focused on what makes you go, and stop worrying about the algorithm, stop worrying about what's the viral sound, stop worrying about your captions, and just go with the flow. And I promise you, like, that's when the good stuff happens, man. Like, nothing I overly thought out did as well as the stuff that I just put out on a Tuesday because I felt like it. You know what I'm saying? So just keep going and keep following passion.
Absolutely. To add to that, I would say creativity knows no bounds. And when you allow yourself to wear handcuffs, when you allow yourself to think in a box, what you're really doing is you're losing that creative spirit. I think that the most creative minds are almost in touch with something that a lot of us lose along the way. And the reason that people look at art and they love it is because it reminds them about that creative part of themselves. I think we all have that in us. And, I would say to people, never, ever, ever box yourself in, because you're capable of amazing things if you just tell yourself that story, that I am that guy who can do these amazing creative things. And, people like you inspire me to keep doing what I'm doing, because I see that in you. I see that you know what you are, and you're following that path. And I just want to say, man, like, if people listen to this, they haven't heard your music, go check it out. If they are familiar with your music, go check it out again. This guy, he's really, he's an artist. And, we need more real artists, more free creative spirits out here, because it keeps me going. So, I just, it was a pleasure to actually meet with you. We've chatted a little tiny bit before this, but we got to know each other. And, yeah, man, it was just nice to talk with you.
Same here, man. I appreciate it. I love everything that you're doing, and I can't. I'm looking forward. I'm gonna lay this down as soon as I can. We're gonna get that song out for these people, man. It's gonna be perfect.
They need it. The people need it.
They need it.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for being here. Ruse Radio.
How you doing?
You don't really wanna dream forever.
Many times that I've been stuck inside my mind like